New Orleans, a city of mystery, a city that 1 million people proudly call home, at least the ones above ground, because New Orleans is also home to many beings that can't find their way back. Watch as our group of paranormal investigators attempt to discover these lost souls. Join us as we explore New Orleans, the most haunted city in America.
I'm David Baird. I am the chef and owner of the Citroen Bistro, also known as the General Eliezer Ripley House, here in the Lower Garden District in New Orleans. I believe that this building didn't just spring up out of nowhere in Louisiana, and I believe that the Jesuits were the ones that actually built the building. And because the Jesuits, again, they were also expelled from this building, so we have two entities that have had a tremendously bad experience here. They've both been tossed out. The Jesuits were tossed out of Louisiana in 1763. There's no dispute, and there is no dispute that General Eliezer Ripley was tossed out of this building in 1833. It was sold at auction by the United States government. I think that has left some extremely bad vibes here in this building.
Right after I started working here, I had a couple of incidents, one door closing that shouldn't have closed, but more specifically, probably the most intense was a wine list that flew off the bar and flew about 20 feet and struck a door very hard and narrowly missed me. And that was very scary at that point.
And he asked me, he said, "What's going on here?" And I said, I don't know what happened. And he told me, he said that there was a book that just flew right off the bar and flew right at his head and smashed into the wall. And he even showed me where it was. And I said, I don't know. I can't explain it.
There was nobody else in the building. I had keys. I was by myself.
One particular evening, I came back and I just was accepting a delivery from the wine vendor and looked over where I was going to be putting the wine and noticed that the entire wine cabinet was rearranged. There were bottles all on the ground and in a different arrangement that was not explainable. I couldn't understand how the bottles could have gotten in that arrangement. There's nobody that could have got in because I had an alarm on, and there's no other employee that has the code to get into the building.
I've seen lights being adjusted without anybody adjusting them. I've seen bottles misplaced when nobody's been around to misplace them.
And another person had noticed that, they had closed the drawers and came back and they were saying, "Who opened those drawers?" I said, "I don't know. I certainly didn't touch it." And they were opened. So there's been a lot of different signatures of other beings being here doing things that you can't explain. When I came into the building one day in July of 2005, I saw a circle around the door in the middle of the building, and it looked to me that somebody had taken a magic marker and made a large O. I first thought it was somebody playing a prank on me, so when I came inside the building, I went to look at the O, and I observed that it was not made with a magic marker. It was actually large live black flies all in a circle all the way around the glass. I had never seen anything like that. I spent a whole day trying to find out where the flies had come from. I looked in the attic, I looked underneath the building, I looked in the trash. I could not find any source for those flies. They just appeared in the building, and they were not common everyday house flies. They were large black flies. And after we got rid of them, I couldn't understand why that happened, and somebody said that there was going to be something bad to happen, and that was in July of 2005. I didn't understand what the bad was going to be, but I guess everyone here in New Orleans knows what happened a little bit later on in August of 2005. So I don't know if it was a precursor of Katrina, but it certainly scared the heck out of me. Every now and then you'll see some figure walk around in the building, and out of the corner of your eye, you'll almost think that you'll see something, and you'll look and you'll look again, and first you're thinking you're seeing somebody, and then you're not.
I'm also aware of something happening probably 40 or 50 years ago in the next dining room over.
One of the customers came in and told me that one of their relatives was killed here, or she had gotten, an elderly lady was involved in a fire that she had caught on fire and perished sometime ago in the 1960s or 1970s.
It was a fairly agonizing death, and I certainly picked up the emotional aspect of that. I mean, it's like walking into a cold shower and just, you know, your skin seizes up, and given any opportunity, I will not go in that room.
I met Philip the psychic, and he explained things that I could not understand how he possibly could have known them, especially when he was telling me where there were walls and there were not walls, and only somebody that had really extensive knowledge on the architectural makeup of the building would have known these things. And he instantly was saying that there was a wall here, there was a wall there.
Something hanging from the ceiling. Things hanging from the ceiling. Like maybe this was a blacksmith shop. I can definitely still smell leather.
And 1819, and we noticed that there was a blacksmith that was used in the building at that time.
A religious place, but maybe not Christian or typically Christian.
For example, the psychic mentioned a voodoo presence, which I happen to know a lot about, and picked up on the entity in the bar area.
I was very impressed. I could not believe how close he was to describing things that we knew, but he wouldn't have known. I believe that they're mostly benevolent. I don't think they aren't necessarily going to harm people, but they certainly want to protect themselves, and they want to protect the building at all costs. They want to keep this building intact, and they don't want it to be destroyed or run away by people that would come in here.
This is Haunted New Orleans.
My name is Holly Vest. I'm the owner of Magnolia Mansion here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I bought the mansion in 2001 and began renovating it, and opened it as a small hotel / B&B in July of 2002. The only apparition that I've ever seen was one night I came back on a red-eye flight, went into room 2, and we were planning to have a wedding that weekend. Went to sleep. Early that morning, about 5:30, I was awakened. There was a man standing there in my room, facing the door with his hand on the doorknob, and I could see him plain as day. He had a cap on, a plaid shirt, pair of jeans, and some boots. And he's about 6'2", and I said, "Sir, what are you doing in my room? I think you're in the wrong room." And he didn't move. He didn't look at me. He didn't do anything except he dissipated. He just dissolved.
Well, my first experience here in the house was my first night being left here alone. Holly had gone back to Vegas, and I was walking through the mansion about 10 o'clock at night, making sure everything was safe, turned some lights off and things like that. As I got to the middle of the hallway, after turning the lights in the hallway off, had this cold rush hit me, and then this real warm feeling come across me, almost like a change in temperature in seconds. And got to the front door, went outside, called Holly on the phone and said, "You're not going to believe this." I told her what happened, told her what I was doing. She's like, "Well, what did you do?" I said, "Well, I turned the light off in the hallway." And she goes, "Go back and turn the light on. They were telling me you're not supposed to turn that light off. We're supposed to keep that on because it's a hotel."
We had just gutted the kitchen. The big cedar door, which weighs about 300 pounds, was hanging there, had no hardware on it. And I had one big fellow that was one of the workers. He was staying here in my absence. And he was on the phone with his girlfriend with his back to the kitchen, and that door slammed open, cold air went past him, and then the door slammed shut. We had a lady and a husband arrive on their honeymoon, and they checked into the vampire lover's lair. And they had just come off of a cruise, and she wasn't feeling good. She was a little nauseous, so they laid down. He got more nervous as the night went on because she was getting extremely nauseous, running a fever, so I sent him down to the hospital, the emergency hospital. Well, the next morning, she shows up to breakfast, and she had this little smile on her face. I said, "You're great, you're doing okay." And she said, she whispered in my ear, and she was pregnant. So I said, "Wonderful. Well, how was the experience?" And I meant at the hospital. And she says, "Oh, it's fabulous." I said, "At the hospital?" She said, "No." And so she told me that when they got home, she laid down on the bed, and she had the covers off of her because she was feeling very feverish. Well, shortly thereafter, she felt a stroke on her cheek. The sheets come up. She looked over to tell her husband, "Thank you and I love you." And he was sound asleep facing the wall, so we thought our caretaker had come down to take care of her because she wasn't feeling well. Another nurse who was staying here with her husband, stay in the same room. She suffers from migraine headaches, and she was resting, and she had the same thing happen with stroking. Every night at 2:30 she would wake up and there was a stroking on her arm, a soothing stroke. This happened several nights in a row, and every time she would wake up to find this, her husband was sound asleep. Well, she was getting dressed in the mirror. She noticed that a man walked into the room. She thought it was her husband coming back. She looked up and started talking and realized her husband wasn't even in the room. No one was in the room, and he showed up a few minutes later.
She had come out when she thought she was talking to her husband, and she went into the dining room to start making her breakfast, and she said, I said, "Something's wrong?" And she goes, "I just had the strangest feeling." And then we started talking, and I said to her, I said, "Well, we think that the caretaker was a nurse of some sort." And she goes, "I can totally agree with you. I am a nurse by trade, and this woman is a nurse that's here, that's taking care of people. She is a nurse." And told me of the stroking and how she felt as the night went on. And this lady was suffering really bad because she didn't come out the room most of the day. But at night she felt much better.
Sure enough, time and time again, we kept getting reports of this. I finally had to pull the bed away from the wall, and I had to talk to the spirit, and I call her the caretaker. I believe she's a caretaker because one of the women who was staying here with her husband's a doctor, they kept them up till about 4 o'clock in the morning, and she actually saw the apparition sitting at the foot of the bed, and she described her as a female with a turban and just sitting there peacefully at the end of the bed.
This group that we had in May, 12 people came in. A lady decided not to take one of the tours that they were going on during the day. She was going to go upstairs and relax in the big tub that she was staying in her room. She put the little bottles of shampoo that we give you when you check into the hotel, and she put her wine glass up there, and she's sitting there and she's in the tub soaking, and the shampoo bottle jumps over her wine glass and into the water, and she comes out and she's like, I said, "Yeah, that's our child that plays with all the different things." She came down, she was white as a ghost. She was scared. But she was like, okay, she had her experience.
We are a romantic destination, and everyone that stays here is either here for their anniversary, to propose, they've gotten married, they're on their honeymoon. So we're 21 years or older, we don't allow children. But we keep getting reports that there's a child playing upstairs, they're laughing. People at the breakfast table sometimes see children standing on the stairway, and they hear little children running, and we've even found tiny little handprints in our bathroom rugs and in our bathtubs. And people say, "I thought you didn't allow children here. I thought you had no children here," and we don't. So they want to know what they're seeing because they're not real children, and we still don't know who they are.
In the Garden District itself, started out as a plantation. It was the Livaday family plantation, and Celeste Maroney was married to Jacques Livaday. And apparently she decided at some point she didn't want to be married to Jacques Livaday anymore, and she filed for divorce and managed to win the plantation in the divorce, and then promptly sold it to developers. And those developers laid out the Garden District. But prior to all of the divorce and the transfer and all of that, she had a niece living with her on the plantation, and her niece drowned in a pool on the plantation, and they see her ghost all over the neighborhood. You know, there's plenty of kids around, so not everybody always notices her at first. But I had one tourist had seen this little girl across the street at the Magnolia Mansion, and it initially didn't think anything of it, but she stopped for a moment and realized it was odd, in fact, to see a kid alone on the street. And then she looked up again to see where the child was, and the child was right in front of her. And then she went to ask the girl where her mother was, and the girl opened up her mouth and water just poured out of her mouth, and she just melted away.
You're watching Haunted New Orleans.
You would think there would have been a lot of parties in a room like this, but really not so much. Nice, quiet, peaceful, being entertaining, doors open, very small, intimate. Which is really funny because I feel like the people that lived here probably had a big family. An office. It's really funny because despite the way the house looks now, I don't get a serious sense of poverty. I don't know what made the person that was in this office so angry. Angry.
I'm just curious.
And mean.
When y'all Cynthia saw fingerprints or palm prints in the carpet, how did y'all do that with this type of carpet?
It wasn't this carpet. It was, if you look in the bathroom, go look in the bathroom at the rug. It was the rug that had the little girl's handprints in it. Huh? I thought it was this one with the green carpet.
There upstairs, and door here upstairs, but then this set of stairs is out that way.
The emergency exits weren't added till later on in the
What
history
are
of
those two doors? They go to the same set of stairs?
upstairs. Goes to the set of stairs that's right out here, the same stairs.
We're gonna go smoke real quick. I'd like to burn my head out before I have to go upstairs.
All right.
Downstairs this way.
Wait, Chastity, repeat about the door.
I said there's a door there upstairs, and a door here upstairs, but then this set of stairs is out that way.
The emergency exits weren't added till later on in the
What
history
are
of
those two doors? They go to the same set of stairs?
upstairs. Goes to the set of stairs that's right out here, the same stairs.
Woman. Back of the house because she didn't like to be at the front. Woman, out of the way. That's
Mistress?
no.
Wife?
Family member, cousin, aunt. Older woman, but not a real old woman.
Bitter divorcee.
Try again. Someone who wanted to be out of the way.
Grandmother.
Possibly. Whoever it was, they didn't like being towards the front of the house. They liked it here at the back.
Grandmother with Alzheimer's.
I don't know. I'm not getting that kind of illness from her. And she's very brief. She's very brief. Nothing else about this room is particularly disturbing.
Go in the one across the hall.
There is something very active in this room. Actually, I'm going to ask you not to do that for a second. Very active in this room, actually. There's something active in this room, and there's something here from somewhere else that's very active. As if something has been brought in here. It doesn't belong here, but whatever the two things are, they're feeding off of each other.
Maybe an old antique.
It's possible. It's kind of dark, so I can't really tell what's antique or not. But you might be on the right track. It might actually be an antique from somewhere else, because there's a sense of fire, whatever that means. So it might be attached to something else, but something else is definitely here. It's a get out and leave me alone kind of pissy. Not angry, not upset about any particular thing. It's just, get the hell out of here pissy. And there's something about this room that's also making me very, very, very warm. And it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter in here.
Yeah, it is.
The rest of the house was kind of cold, and I know they have AC,
I was having a hot flash.
but right there, camera there. Go ahead, turn that camera, and get her out of there.
Want something's gonna happen?
You sit back. This is pissing me off because I don't have anything that I can definitely put my thumb on since I don't know anything about the house. And I'm getting a very, very painful kind of depth thing. Heat, fire,
Lightning.
depth thing.
Well, wouldn't being struck by lightning be heat and fire?
Not like what I'm feeling. Not like what I'm seeing, because I'm not seeing orbs. I'm seeing an actual shadowy thing moving around. That's what I'm following. I'm not going randomly.
Is it a male or female?
That's what's pissing me off. I can't isolate it as being male or female.
Adult or child?
Adult. Adult. Good. Keep doing that.
Get in there with him. Keep doing it.
Adult. Adult.
Adult? Elderly? Or middle age?
There's not enough for me to see or not enough for me to feel like that. Everything else is overwhelming. I mean, just stand there quietly for a second and really, really feel that. I mean, really feel it.
It feels like the heat from my attic.
But it shouldn't be hot in here. The AC is on. You can hear the AC running. I'm standing here, I can feel the AC blowing down, and my shirt is clinging to my body.
You sure the shadows weren't from the tree outside?
Mm-mm. Look at the shadows here on the wall. You can see them. The shadows are coming in, but they're only here in one isolated area. I'm looking at a shadow thing here earlier, and I'm definitely looking at a shadow thing like right here. That's what I was first looking at initially. Something goes through this room, through this door, and wherever this door goes, If this door goes outside, it may drift outside for a second. It doesn't leave this area alone, and it doesn't like to be intruded upon. This is a very interesting room.